The music was loud. The kind of loud that makes your chest vibrate. The rooftop venue was packed. Laughing, drinking, dancing. Perfect night. Perfect setup. And in the middle of it all, Jessica. My wife. My beautiful, lying, cheating wife. She was glowing under the string lights, swirling a glass of champagne, surrounded by friends. Or at least that's what I thought. Until I saw him. A stranger. But not just any stranger. This man, tall, effortlessly charming, with an expensive-looking watch and a little too much confidence, was hovering around Jessica like she was the only person in the room. I watched, studied, the way he leaned in when she spoke, the way she laughed just a little too hard, the way she touched his arm when she thought no one was looking. I clenched my jaw. Something was off. Then, the first punch to the gut, Jessica disappeared. 1 second, she was toasting with her friends. The next, gone. No explanation. No text. Just gone. I felt my pulse in my ears. I tried to play it off. Maybe she went to the restroom. Maybe she needed fresh air. Maybe I was being paranoid. But the sinking feeling in my stomach was screaming otherwise. So I went looking. We were on a rooftop, which meant she couldn't have gone far. I weaved through the guests, scanning every corner. The dance floor empty. The bar, no sign of her. And then, the hallway leading to the private suites. My fingers curled into fists. I shouldn't have opened that door. I should have walked away. Should have given her the benefit of the doubt. But I didn't. And when I pushed the door open, I wished I had never stepped into that room. Jessica, against the wall. Her hands tangled in his jacket. His lips too close to her neck. She gasped when she saw me. He turned, startled, adjusting his tie like he had just been caught stealing from a bank. For a second, time stopped. No music. No party. Just the sound of my own heartbeat pounding like a war drum. Then Jessica had the audacity to laugh. "Relax," she said, smoothing her dress like nothing had happened. "It's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like." I felt my fingers twitch. My entire body was wired, ready for something. Anything. A confession. An apology. A damn breakdown. But she just rolled her eyes. Like I was the problem. Like I was ruining her night. And then the stranger, this absolute piece of garbage, had the nerve to step forward and offer his hand. "I'm Daniel," he said casually, as if introducing himself to a dinner guest instead of the husband of the woman he was just pawing at. I didn't shake it. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. Jessica sighed, looking at me like I was an inconvenience. "You're embarrassing yourself," she muttered under her breath. Embarrassing myself? I felt something inside me snap. The party outside was still going, people laughing, oblivious. But here, in this dimly lit room, my world was crumbling. And Jessica? She couldn't care less. Jessica had the nerve to look annoyed, like I had walked in on her private moment, like I was the one ruining her night. I was standing there, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms, while this Daniel guy, this perfectly put-together stranger, straightened his jacket, gave me a once-over, and then smirked. A smirk. That was it. That was the moment the rage inside me ignited into something else. Something sharp. Something lethal. "You're embarrassing yourself?" Jessica repeated, adjusting the strap of her dress. Her dress, the one I bought her. The one I spent weeks picking out because I wanted her to feel special. The weight of the betrayal hit me so hard I almost staggered. My throat was tight. My vision blurred at the edges. But I forced myself to breathe, to focus, because I wasn't about to let her or this nobody gaslight me into thinking I was imagining things. "Explain," I said. My voice came out disturbingly calm. Too calm. I didn't even recognize myself. Jessica scoffed, flipping her hair over her shoulder like I had just asked her if the earth was round. "We were just talking. Talking." I let the words settle in my mind for a second. I glanced at Daniel, who looked way too comfortable for a man caught in the middle of what should have been a disaster. "Talking? That's what we're calling it now? So that's what this was?" I gestured between them, my voice still too steady. "You pressed up against the wall with his hands all over you? That's just talking." Jessica crossed her arms, shifting her weight onto one leg. "You're being dramatic." "Dramatic?" I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "You know what's dramatic? planning a whole damn party for your wife only to find her sneaking off with another guy. That's dramatic. Daniel took a step back, probably realizing that whatever charm he thought he had wasn't going to work on me. But Jessica? She doubled down. Oh my God. Stop acting like some insecure psycho. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. Something in me shattered. I could feel it. A cold emptiness settling into my chest where something warm used to be. 7 years. 7 years of loyalty, of love, of sacrifices. And this is what I get? A smirk from some random guy and a condescending speech from my own wife? I inhaled slowly, my pulse hammering. How long? I asked. Jessica rolled her eyes, but something in her expression shifted. The tiniest hesitation. The smallest crack. Daniel, on the other hand, suddenly found the floor very interesting. How long, Jessica? I repeated. She exhaled loudly, like I was exhausting her. It doesn't matter. My hands curled into fists. It matters to me. Jessica's lips parted, like she was about to say something. Maybe another excuse, another lie. But then someone from the party called her name. A friend. A guest. Someone who had no idea what was happening in this room. Jessica immediately turned toward the door, like she was about to leave. Like this wasn't a conversation worth having. Like I wasn't worth an answer. And that's when I knew. She wasn't sorry. She was never going to be sorry. She wasn't going to fight for this marriage. She wasn't even going to fight to keep lying. She just didn't care. And somehow, that was worse than all of it. Jessica turned toward the door like she had somewhere better to be, and in that second, something inside me snapped. I had walked in on my wife tangled up with another man, and she had the audacity to act like I was the inconvenience. Like I was some overdramatic idiot making a scene over nothing. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done. You're really going to walk out of this room right now? My voice was calm, but my hands were shaking. Jessica paused, only for a second, before giving me a bored look over her shoulder. What do you want me to say, huh? That I'm sorry? That I regret it? That it was a mistake? She sighed. It wasn't. I felt the air leave my lungs. It wasn't. Daniel, the smug waste of oxygen standing behind her, looked at me like he was waiting for me to explode, waiting for me to start throwing punches. But I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction. Jessica, though, she wasn't done talking. I mean, let's be real, she said, crossing her arms. We've been off for a while. I didn't think you'd care this much. Care this much? I stared at her, the woman I had spent years of my life with, the woman I thought I knew. And in that moment, I saw her for exactly who she was. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. When exactly did you decide I didn't care, Jessica? Was it before or after you started sneaking around? She scoffed. You act like I've been living some double life. I tilted my head. Haven't you? She didn't answer. Didn't even blink. I exhaled through my nose, dragging a hand down my face. You know what? I said, stepping back. I actually don't care anymore. Jessica raised an eyebrow, amused. Oh, so now you don't care? No, I said. And this time I meant it. Because in that exact moment, I felt something shift inside me. Whatever attachment I had to her, whatever desperate hope I was clinging to, it was gone. Jessica must have seen something in my face change, because for the first time that night, she actually hesitated. But it was too late. You deserve each other, I said, cutting my gaze toward Daniel. I hope you enjoy cleaning up her mess when she does this to you too. His smirk finally disappeared. Good. I turned and walked out before either of them could say another word. The party was still in full swing outside. People were laughing, drinking, completely unaware that my entire world had just collapsed behind that door. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I belonged in my own life anymore. I just knew one thing. I was done with Jessica. I walked out of that room, out of that moment, out of that marriage. Or at least that's what I thought. The air outside felt different, colder. The party was still roaring. Music thumping, glasses clinking, voices rising in laughter. It was surreal. My entire reality had just been blown to hell, and yet life around me kept going like nothing had happened. I should have left, grabbed my keys, walked out of that venue, and never looked back. But then I saw her friends. A group of them. Our mutual friends, people I had invited, people who had spent years telling me how lucky, I was to have Jessica. They waved me over, oblivious, faces flushed with champagne and celebration. "Where's the birthday girl?" one of them asked, grinning. "You guys sneaking off for a little private time?" I swallowed the bitter laugh, threatening to escape. "Yeah, something like that." Before I could respond, the elevator doors slid open. And there she was, Jessica. But she wasn't alone. She brought Daniel. I felt my body go rigid, my fingers twitching at my sides. Because if I thought she couldn't sink lower, she had just proven me wrong. She walked out like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just burned our entire marriage to the ground. And Daniel? He strolled out beside her with his hands in his pockets, looking too damn comfortable for a man who should have been 6 feet under by now. And that's when I realized she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Jessica flicked her gaze toward me, a small smirk playing on her lips. Not guilt, amusement. She was enjoying this. Something inside me boiled over. I was done playing the composed husband, done swallowing my pride, done pretending like I didn't just walk in on my wife throwing away 7 years of marriage for a cheap thrill. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I turned to her friends, the same friends who had spent years telling me how perfect we were together, and I made sure my voice carried over the music. "You all want to know where the birthday girl has been?" I said, loud enough to turn heads. Jessica's smirk vanished. "She wasn't in the bathroom," I continued, ignoring the sudden tension in the air. "She wasn't getting fresh air." I let the words settle before delivering the final blow. "She was in the back room with him." I jabbed a finger toward Daniel. And before anyone asks, no, they weren't talking. The entire group fell silent. Jessica's eyes blazed. "Are you serious right now?" Daniel took half a step back like the coward he was. "Yeah, Jess," I said, my voice steady. "I'm serious." And then I did what she never expected. I raised my glass. "To Jessica," I said, letting every word drip with venom. "To a birthday she'll never forget." Then, without breaking eye contact, I downed my drink, set the glass on the table, and walked the hell out. I didn't need to see her reaction. I didn't need to hear the gasps from her friends or the excuses she would try to spin. She wasn't my problem anymore. At least that's what I thought. Until she showed up at my apartment the next night, crying. I was halfway through packing when the knock came. Sharp, desperate. The kind of knock that meant trouble. For a second, I considered ignoring it. I wanted nothing to do with her. Not after last night. Not after I had walked out of that party and left her standing there, exposed. But something in me, some twisted need for closure, made me swing the door open. And there she was, Jessica, crying. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her hair, once flawless, was now a mess. She had ditched the party dress for one of my old hoodies, one she had stolen years ago and claimed as hers. She looked at me with wide, tear-soaked eyes and whispered, "Can I come in?" I should have slammed the door in her face. I should have laughed. But instead, I just stepped aside. She walked in slowly, hesitating, like she wasn't sure if she belonged here anymore. She didn't. I folded my arms, leaning against the counter, watching her, waiting. Jessica sniffled, rubbing her arms like she was cold. I don't even know where to start," she choked out. I said nothing, because I knew exactly where this was going. The tears, the trembling voice, the broken girl act. This was her last trick. Jessica wasn't sorry she cheated. She was sorry she got caught. "I messed up," she whispered, stepping closer. "I was drunk. I wasn't thinking." And I held up a hand. "Stop." She blinked. "What?" "Just stop," I said, exhaling. "We both know you weren't drunk. You were perfectly sober when you dragged that guy into the back room. You were sober when you kissed him. You were sober when you walked out of that party with him." Her lips parted, but I wasn't finished. "And you were definitely sober when you smirked at me like this was all some kind of joke." Jessica flinched. "That wasn't—" I pushed off the counter, shaking my head. "Don't lie to me, Jess. Not now." She swallowed hard. For the first time, she looked nervous, like she could feel the walls closing in. She reached for my hand. I didn't let her. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. I let out a breath, slow, measured, controlled, because I almost laughed. Jessica didn't want to lose me. Not because she loved me. Not because she regretted it. She wanted to win. She wanted me to fold, to forgive, to take her back so she could pretend this never happened. But I wasn't the same man I was yesterday. So I said the only thing that mattered. You already did. Her breath hitched. Good. I stepped back, nodding toward the door. Go home, Jessica. She hesitated, searching my face for something. Weakness. A crack. A reason to stay. But there was nothing left. And eventually, she realized it. Without another word, she turned and walked out of my apartment. I locked the door behind her. And this time I knew. She wasn't coming back. I should have felt relief when the door shut behind Jessica. I should have felt free. But instead, something gnawed at me. Maybe it was the way she had shown up at my apartment, crying like her life depended on it. Maybe it was the look in her eyes, the flicker of something that wasn't just guilt, but fear. Jessica wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of something else. And I was about to find out exactly what. The next morning, I was at the kitchen counter, drinking black coffee and scrolling through my phone, when a notification popped up, a message from Mark. Mark was one of my closest friends. He had been at the party, one of the few people who actually cared about how I was doing after everything went down. But this wasn't a "how are you holding up" text. It was a screenshot. And below it, just 2 words. Bro, look. I clicked on the image, and my stomach dropped. It was a photo, taken at the party. Blurry, but clear enough. Jessica, in the back room, with Daniel. But that wasn't the part that made my skin crawl. The timestamp on the photo? 11:45 p.m. And why did that matter? Because at 11:50 p.m., when I walked into that room and caught them, they were already fixing themselves up, which meant this wasn't the first time that night. I hadn't caught them in the act. I had caught them after. A slow, sickening realization slid into my bones. Jessica hadn't just been cheating. She had been bold about it. Comfortable. Because this wasn't new. This had been going on for a while. Under my nose. And then another text from Mark. Dude, I know you don't want to hear this, but I recognized the guy. My fingers hovered over the screen. No way. His name isn't Daniel. I sat up straighter, my heartbeat slamming against my ribs. That's Jason Carter. The name hit me like a freight train. Jason Carter. The name I had heard Jessica mention before. Not as a friend. Not as a coworker. But as her ex. The one she had told me was toxic. The one she swore she hadn't spoken to in years. And now I knew. She had never stopped seeing him. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time thing. Jessica had been cheating on me with her ex. For how long? Months? Years? I didn't know. And I didn't care. Because for the first time since this nightmare started, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel heartbreak. I just felt disgust. Jessica wasn't the woman I had married. Hell, maybe she never had been. But one thing was clear. I had wasted enough of my life on her. And now, I was going to make damn sure she never got a chance to lie to me again. The moment I saw that name, Jason Carter, everything clicked. This wasn't just betrayal. This was premeditated. Calculated. Jessica had been feeding me lie after lie while sneaking around with the same guy she once cried to me about. The same guy she called a mistake. And now, I was done being the fool. I stared at the messages, my grip tightening around my phone. I could feel the rage bubbling up, threatening to spill over. But this time, I wasn't going to let it control me. Jessica wanted to play games? Fine. It was my turn. I knew exactly where she'd be that night. Jessica had a routine, something I had never paid much attention to before, but now I saw it for what it was. Every Thursday, she had girls' night. Drinks, dinner, and catching up with her friends. Except now I wasn't buying it. And with Mark feeding me information, I didn't have to. 10:15 p.m. I pulled up to the bar downtown, the one Jessica and her friends always went to. Except tonight, she wasn't sitting with them. She was with him, Jason Carter. They were in a dark corner booth, her hand on his knee, his arm draped over the back of the seat like he owned her. I could have walked straight in and caused a scene, could have called her out in front of everyone. But I wanted to do something worse. I wanted her to feel the walls closing in. I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture, one that showed her leaning in, laughing at whatever stupid thing he was saying. Then I sent it to her. I watched from my car as she checked her phone. At first, she didn't react. Just glanced down, took a sip of her drink. Then she froze. Jessica's fingers tightened around her glass. Her smile faltered. And then, she started frantically looking around. She knew. She knew I was watching. I let her sit with that fear for a full minute. Let her squirm. Let her realize that her little secret wasn't a secret anymore. Then I sent a second message. Enjoy your night. It's your last one as my wife. I didn't wait for her response. I just started the car, turned up the music, and drove home, smiling for the first time in days. Because Jessica, she wasn't just losing me. She was about to lose everything that I barely made it through my front door before my phone exploded with calls. Jessica. I let it ring. She called again, and again, and again. Finally, I picked up, but I didn't say a word. For 3 full seconds, all I heard was her breathing. Fast. Panicked. Then, where are you? Her voice was shaking. Good. I leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly. Calm. In control. Enjoying my night, I said. Unlike you. Jessica let out a frustrated noise. This isn't funny. Where the hell are you? I smiled. I could ask you the same thing. Silence. I let that hang in the air before dropping the bomb. I saw you, Jessica. I saw everything. She sucked in a breath. I cut her off. Save it. I don't need your excuses. I don't even care anymore. Another silence. This one longer. Heavier. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she asked, "What are you going to do?" And that's when I knew. Jessica wasn't scared because she felt bad. She was scared because she knew I had power now. I chuckled, shaking my head. Oh, don't worry. I already did it. Her breath hitched. What does that mean? I filed for divorce this morning. A sharp inhale. You? And that's not all, I continued. See, while you were out playing Happy Reunion with Jason, I had a little chat with your friends. Her panic was almost palpable. What did you tell them? I took my time answering, letting the tension build, letting her sweat. Everything. Jessica's gasp was pure horror. You're lying. I smiled. Try me. I heard her stand up suddenly, knocking something over. The bar. She must have bolted from her seat, ready to run damage control. But it was too late. You want to know the best part? I said, voice almost casual. They weren't even surprised. They've had their suspicions for a while. Guess you're not as slick as you thought. Stop, she snapped, her voice cracking. You're ruining my life. I laughed. Actually laughed. No, Jessica. You ruined your life. I'm just making sure you feel it. A choked sob. I pictured her, standing outside that bar, gripping her phone, realizing for the first time that she had lost. I didn't mean. I hung up. And just like that, Jessica was out of my life. No more lies. No more gaslighting. No more excuses. Just peace. And damn, it felt good.